Okay, y'all, I'm going to show you how I go about the process of completing this hairy question mark homework assignment. Just because we had to rush it a little bit in class this week, right? Here's Max Ernst's example of frottage, which is a surrealist practice that he invented using textures and combining them in surprising ways to evoke some kind of dream state territory. And we have on the web page an embedded version of this surrealist generator, and you can reload the page to get a new surrealist phrase. I found one that I finally am satisfied with. This can be something that you literally illustrate, or you just use it as a jumping off point to to imagine an interesting kind of composition using your textures, right? If only I was undead. So yeah. I also have certain size requirements for this homework assignment. It's going to be 12 by 18 inches, horizontal or vertical, 300 ppi, RGB color. So let's go into Photoshop. First off, let's say new image, and we're going to change our measure to inches this time. 12 by 18, 300 pixels per inch, RGB color. Go. And here we have our stage. I'm going to start off by dragging a couple textures located on my thumb drive into Photoshop. I'm going to bring in this guy. And I really like this one, actually. The fishnet is quite evocative of certain forms in nature to me. Let's try that again. I don't know where that went to. Okay, so I have these three textures to start out, and I'm going to pull everything onto my stage at some point. So of course you can begin by just using the lasso and creating like abstract shapes. This can be like an entirely abstract process if you want, just hand-drawn stuff. And the method that we're going to use to cut these textures out is not just normal cut and paste, but we're going to use layer masks. And once you have your selection and you have the layer that you want to manipulate highlighted, this texture layer here, all you have to do is go down to the bottom of the layer palette and hit Add Layer Mask. Blam. Okay? And so this is great because you can always disable it, you can erase it, and it's gone, and you have your original image back. This is going to be more important to as we go forward. Change my layer a little bit. Okay. Once again, add layer mask. Oops. And if you want, you can even change. You can edit the shape of your layer mask if you want to. Once you've already established it. If you highlight the layer mask itself in the layers palette, you can use the paintbrush and the eraser to refine it. With the eraser, I hide more territory. With the paintbrush, I reveal more territory. This works almost exactly like the quick mask mode that we have used in previous weeks, right? So let's actually get a little bit more sophisticated here with our selections. Let's bring in a selection of something from the web. I'm going to start off with this fern leaf I've gathered. Just drag it into Photoshop. And you'll want to drag it also into your composition. It's much easier to kind of go between, move selections between layers than between separate images, right? So let me just size it properly using my transform tools. Okay, once I have that, this seems like a very complicated image to select, right? Look at all these. You could spend hours just tracing the ins and outs of this fern leaf. But if you strategize in making your selections, you can actually sometimes get really great specific selections very quickly. like in this case, because it's on a very simple, solid white background, I can actually use a sort of indirect process to select it. With the magic wand, I can just click on the white background, and it's selected all the white, basically. And so I've selected everything that is not the fern, and now I can go into the select menu and just say inverse selection, and check it out. Now I have a perfect selection of just the fern leaf, right? But I don't want to select from the fern image. I actually want to select from the texture image. So I'm taking my selection, my floating selection, and it'll just go with you to any layer that you select, right? So I'm clicking my texture layer, and then I add layer mask, right? So it's actually cut out the texture in the shape of the fern, and my selection only included up to the white background of the fern. So now I actually want to edit the layer mask, edit the clipping on this. Whoops, I'm gonna erase to hide more of the underlying texture. Oh no, give me. Okay. That's fine. No, it's not fine. I'm going to grab that back. Oh no. Yeah, Butterfingers. Okay, let's try one more time. There we go. Okay, and so now you can kind of adjust this guy as you would any layer. See, I'm rotating. I'm gonna shrink it down a little bit. Shrink him down. Okay, here we are. Okay, let's get another. Another texture here. I'm just gonna isolate like some of the texture this time. Shrinking them down. Okay, get him in the back. One great thing I can do is I can actually change the kind of the feel for the texture. It doesn't have to just forever appear like this sort of boring wool pattern. I can actually now go in and adjust the brightness and contrast and color balance, and these textures can begin to evoke very different kinds of material from the natural world. Like if I up the brightness here, so it's a little less gloomy feeling. On your computers, this will probably go much faster. Cue the Jeopardy noise. I mean music. Okay, let's go to color balance. I'm not 100% happy with this, but there we go. That's a little more to my liking. Highlights. Let's see about that. So now we're beginning to look a little bit like the sky. Kind of cloudy sky. I'm just gonna replicate this a couple times. More or less, that's what we want, right? And we can also do that with the fern leaf. Let's see what we can get here. change the brightness and contrast a little. Let's change the color balance. Great, so now we have a nice green fern leaf. I'm going to replicate that a couple times. I'm actually going to flip it. Great. So now we're starting to build an interesting scene. If you want your cutout textures to stand out from whatever's behind them, if you want a little higher contrast, you can use a blending mode, which is something that's associated with the layers palette, right? I'm going to click on one of my ferns here, and I could either right-click on the layer, or I can go up to the drop-down menu on the layers palette and click blending option. This is blending option, not blending mode, actually. I'm going to give it a drop shadow. Can you see that? Oh. Okay, you can see this little drop shadow. It just kind of traces anywhere there is imagery, or anywhere there is there are pixels on your layer. You can change some of these settings, make it a little softer or harder. There's a nice little drop shadow, right? So now your ferns will stand out from the background a little better. I'm also going to add one more thing here. I'm going to bring its arm into play. At this point, if you know what you're going to do, if you've got everything down, just feel free to stop this video. I think I'm going to have like an arm reaching out from the ground, but of course it's not the actual arm that I want, but a texture. Let's make the arm originate from this guy. Oh, interesting. This hand was already nicely cut out for me. How easy is that? So now I can just, once again, I'm going to select the area around, and it's just going to clip to the hand, and then inverse, hide the hand, and select the texture layer, and here I am. But I don't really want a metallic hand, do I? I don't want a metallic hand. I want a zombie hand, because remember, I'm undead, thankfully. Or I'm wishing that I was undead. So let's just do a little bit of a color adjustment. Oh, I believe somebody was having this trouble earlier. I can't do the color adjustment, why not? It's because I've selected the actual layer mask. And so now when I just click the layer again, it will allow me to mess with the color balance. Shadow, I think the shadows will have a nice blue, purplish tone. The highlights, more of a red or pink. I'm going for like a decaying flesh feel. So maybe I need more of a green in there. The tones. What happens when it's green? I don't know. Play around. We don't want that. We'll go with that for now. You don't need to watch this whole process. It's starting to look a little rotten and disgusting. Okay, so here we are. Oh, another fun blending option could be an outer glow. So feel free to play around with, with selections. Use selections in Layer Mask. Try out the blending options and create a really beautiful image out of these textures. And feel free to email with any questions.